Well, good morning, everyone out there. Jess Peterson, your executive director for the Big Sky Passenger Rail Authority. Normally, you're greeted by our fearless and accomplished chairman, Dave Strohmeyer. He's only quadruple booked today, Mr. Dan Bucks. So you've got the rest of us, but I'll tell you, folks, you got the varsity team lineup here. But even more importantly, we got the Olympic team here with all of you, because you're the ones that are actually going to benefit and get all this implemented. So we are super excited that you're here today on this beautiful Friday across the North, Montana, and the states connected that are joining us here today. And it couldn't be more fitting that we have this beautiful sunny day to get work on something that's just really, really incredible, both for the current and the future setting. So I'll look around here and say, any objection here, Dan? Looks like we can just kick this thing started and get some of our great guest speakers teed up and our incredible guests here this morning. So Dan, with a nod with you, we'll just get rolling here.
Yes. Good morning. I'm Dan Bucks. I'm the chair of the Development and Strategic Engagement Committee of the Big Sky Passenger Rail Authority. Today, and you've got the list of the presenters there on the screen, those of us who will be talking to you today, hopefully expeditiously. Our objectives today are to share big news with you about the progress that has been made in renewing passenger rail service on the former North Coast Hiawatha route. This is no longer an advocacy effort. It is now in a planning and design stage, and that's big news with important implications for your communities. We're gonna talk about what that news means in terms of potential benefits for local communities, that if we work together, we can produce the maximum level of those benefits to everyone across the route. And so that's what this webinar is all about, is fostering the communication to benefit the citizens of our great region. I'm going to turn this over now to Allison Corbin, who's going to describe a little more about the webinar.
Great, thanks, Dan. So we've got our introduction here right now, and this kind of walks through what to expect today. So we'll have two different segments where you'll get to ask questions, and I'll be your moderator for that. So if you have questions as the presentation moves on, feel free to put that in the chat, and I can certainly read them when we reach the question and answer period. Or when we're in the question and answer period, feel free to raise your hand, and then you can be able to answer your question via turning on your camera and turning on your mic. So I will also be working through all of the timekeeping, so you'll see me keeping time on each of our speakers today. And so we appreciate you being here, and I'll be your moderator for the day. With that, I'm going to turn it over to a quick video from our chairman, David Strohmeyer, since he wasn't able to be here today, just to give you a quick highlight of the exciting progress that we have here at Big Sky Passenger Rail.
Getting that sound coming up just right. We haven't had that sound come up just right on most of them here. So Maggie will pause here until we get that sound just right. And I will ad-lib what Dave is saying. I want to try it one more time there, Maggie. If not, I can weigh in with a couple words here. I'm going to go on pause. And I want to just take a moment as we're teeing up that video and thank each and every one of you. And again, the webinar, the goal here is and this is where I want to make two really important points before I turn it back to our chairman. This is your Big Sky Passenger Rail Authority. It is your support from your counties and municipalities across this great region that make it reality. It's been your authority that's accomplished the funding through the federal and the selection of the North Coast Hiawatha through the Federal Rail Administration, and key funding dollars are coming to your community. You're going to hear today how each and every one of you can leverage those dollars. You've been doing that. That's what we do the best in Montana. You take a nickel and you make a quarter out of it, and so on and so forth. So we're excited to show how just a little bit of dollars work in prioritization. I'll quote Dan Bucks. This is the only long distance rail. The rest of them are short stints. This is the only long distance rail in the country, and it's right through your community, your state, your region. And there are so many benefits. We're so excited for you to be here. Let's see if that sound's working right there with our chairman.
Hi everyone, I'm Dave Strohmeyer, Chairman of the Big Sky Passenger Rail Authority. Welcome to our inaugural Municipal Partner Webinar. We look forward over the course of the next hour sharing with you news about the Big Sky Passenger Rail Authority, ways in which you and your municipalities and local jurisdictions can get involved, and specifically how you can get involved in the restoration of the North Coast Hiawatha route. As you might know already, the North Coast Hiawatha was operated by Amtrak up until 1979, connecting Chicago to Seattle and points in between. Well, thanks to the hard work of the Big Sky Passenger Rail Authority and other partners, we were successful in getting this route into the Federal Railroad Administration's Corridor Identification and Development Program. The North Coast Hiawatha is the only new long-distance route in the entire United States that was accepted into this program. My friends, this is a big deal. And over the course of this webinar, we hope you'll learn some opportunities.
We've had a lot of fun with these videos. They're always fun to upload and see if they work in real time. So again, just paraphrase a little bit what Dave's talking about here. We're going to be able to see this region, again, connecting some very major cities. And I always say, they suggest you're going to have to reference cities in Montana. I'm sorry. We have larger towns in Montana. That's why we live here. That's why we love it. But we're actually going to connect you to some larger cities throughout this route. And then from there, what we really need, though, and you're going to hear this over and over, it's partnerships followed by partnerships followed by partnerships. If we don't get you partnering with us, I give all the credit to this. A lot of folks you're hearing from Dan Bucks, from Jason Stewart, Dave Strohmeyer, the rest of them. We have elevated this to the level. Now it's time for that local connectivity that Montanans do best. So with that, are we ready to go there with Jason Stewart? Or we want to play the rest of that video, Maggie? I think it is Jason. Are you ready, Jason?
Jason isn't on. Dan, if you could take over.
And I can jump in there a little bit I can talk a little on Jason's point there, Dan, if you need.
Okay, and Maggie, you'll check in with Jason while we do this? Is that?
Will do.
Okay, all right. Folks, the North, as Dave Strohmeyer alluded to, the North Coast Hiawatha route is the only new long-distance route selected in this country for redevelopment at this particular stage. On December 8th, the President of the United States announced 69 new routes in the country to receive planning and design funding for development. And the only new long-distance route among all those 69 is the former route of the North Coast Hiawatha. And it extends from Chicago to Seattle. That's the former route through southern North Dakota and Montana and northern Idaho, and overlapping the Empire Builder on certain distances in the West and in the Midwest. And we're proud of that we are the only route selected for development. We go to the next slide, if we could. This is a map, a detailed map, a more detailed map of the particular route. Again, this is not a final routing. There are route variations that can be developed within this area, different options. But this is the basic route that we're talking about. And of course, it shows where it traverses across the Great Plains and the Northern Rockies. We'll move on then to the next slide, if we could. This route will have major impacts in terms of transforming the economy and the society of this region. An example of this comes from the Empire Builder, where the return on investment, even during the pandemic period, was 6 times the yearly cost. And in the pre-pandemic period, the return was 10 times the return of the on the investment. So 10 to 1 pre-pandemic, 6 to 1 during the pandemic. This is a substantial return. One of the things that is interesting, though, that in looking at more detailed studies of the impact on passenger rail, all of the communities along a route benefit and gain. But passenger rail is unique among all the transportation systems in terms of lifting up percentage-wise the economic and social activity in the rural areas more than the urban areas. And with that, I see Jason has joined us, and I'm going to let Jason take over, Jason Stewart, the vice chair of the authority, to take over the rest of the story at this particular point. And Jason, welcome to the webinar. And Jason is from Glendive. And those of you in North Dakota, many of you have met Jason because he has been our ambassador to the state of North Dakota for the last several years, and a very effective ambassador at that. Jason?
Thank you, thank you, Dan. Apologies for being a little bit late here. I was having some trouble getting into the meeting here this morning. The fun that can come with technology. It's great when it works, and kind of a pain when it doesn't. But anyway, so Dan, again, apologies because I kind of dropped in here as you were. So I want to make sure I'm not going to cover anything you haven't already covered. So looks like you have talked about already what the route we're going to look like and all that. Is that correct, Dan? Dan, you're muted. I can't hear you.
Yes, we're up to the economic benefits and the social benefits and the impact on local communities is where we are.
Okay, well, thank you, Dan. All right, well, I'm not going to repeat anything that Dan's been over here. Obviously, we're talking about, really good opportunities for new job creation, for economic development across the region that this service goes through. Transportation jobs, tourism jobs, all that kind of stuff goes into it. They are an economic engine, and the economic benefits that accrue from the routes accrue in the local communities in which they pass largely, in terms of job creation and all that. There's some other factors that go into it that help drive those economic numbers, but they are a great driver for local communities, and especially for rural communities. And besides, and I'm not sure if Dan talked about this already, but besides the economic impacts, you're just talking about quality of life impacts to communities like Glendive, like Webo, like Miles City and Forsyth and all the communities in between, and going east to our partners in North Dakota, like Dickinson and Medora, and Jamestown and Valley City and all these communities up and down this route, which will stand to benefit from this in more than economic terms, but in social terms, from having this service available to your local community, to these rural communities, these truly rural communities, for people to get to where they need to go safely, affordably, efficiently, in any weather, which, as we all know, driving up and down the interstate during the winter across eastern Montana and western North Dakota, that can be a tough road to hoe, if you can even do it. I know a lot of times you get to the North Dakota border, especially, and it's interstate closed. Please turn around and go back home because it's just too bad. It takes a lot to stop a train. It takes one heck of a blizzard to put a train out of service. So we're talking about all-weather accessibility for local people to get to the services they need, be those healthcare services. Many of our communities have an elderly and aging population. A lot of times the services they need are not accessible there in the local communities. They need to travel some hundreds of miles away to get there, and they don't have air service to those places where they need to get, and or at all. And their only choice is to drive a long way over tough roads, especially during the wintertime. So having that availability, the availability for kids to access colleges, and and for tourism, for local people to go out to where they want to go to the big cities, whether it's the endpoints or anywhere in between, connecting business opportunities, even connecting families together during the holidays. I mean, these are all ways that that will improve the quality of life for our local communities. So this is just an amazing, and would be an amazing investment for our region, especially here for us in the very rural parts of eastern Montana, western North Dakota. So many people you talk to talk about what a godsend this would be. I know we've experienced that at some of the meetings we've held with elderly people who describe how they had to drive to Billings in a snowstorm, got stuck there for days on end because of the weather, wanted to get back home but couldn't. They had gone for medical services, or even to Bozeman or the other direction, going to Fargo or Minneapolis. It's common enough, and it would just be a huge boost to our local communities to have this kind of thing available. Another thing we're looking at with and I don't know if Dan touched on this yet, with this service, is we are actually exploring the idea of doing a small parcel delivery on a restored train. And that is something that, Dan, if you've already covered this, tell me to stop, but if not, but we actually have a grant for that through the Pacific Northwest Economic Regions Regional Infrastructure Accelerator Grant, $150,000 grant. It's not fully for that, but as part of that grant funding, we are going to conduct a study about the feasibility of establishing that kind of service on the route. So, I mean, you can imagine, in theory, a person could put a parcel on a train in Chicago, and that parcel could be in Seattle in less than 2 days later. So, and could be in Montana in 24 hours. So, that could be an amazing service that could both really benefit our local communities, local business owners, local farmers and ranchers, getting tractor parts, whatever they might need from those kind of sources, and getting them there quickly, so they can get back to business. That would be an amazing service, possibly, and it will also potentially help Amtrak with their business model and their recovering and recouping some of the investments made in them, and helping to offset that. So it really could be that's another thing that could be an amazing service for our local communities, for our rural communities, that could be established through this type of service.
So just to keep us on track, actually, with our time here, Jason, if you could cover just our goal of the when will trains arrive, and then we'll open up to some questions and keep moving through our agenda.
Okay. Yep. Well, I believe I've kind of covered all that as it is. So as far as when will nurse service happen, our goal is for it to be done by 2032. That is kind of our target date as an authority. Now, personally, my hope, and I like even numbers and even years. Of course, 32 is an even year, but 30 is an even more even year. So I would personally like to see the service in place by 2030 if possible, but certainly we think it can certainly be done by 2032 and have our service established. So we think that's achievable. We believe that everything is lining up for that to be achievable. So we hope to hit that target date. That being said, the more that local communities are involved in the process, and will get them and will become involved in that process, the earlier we can potentially hit that target date. This is a long route. It's 2,200 miles going from Chicago to Seattle / Portland. And even the section that just goes through Montana and North Dakota is over 750 miles. So there are a lot of communities that are going to be impacted by this service. There are a lot of communities that are going to want stops for this service when it's reestablished. And the sooner that you can start having those conversations and having those conversations with us, the sooner that we believe that the service can be developed and delivered. So we need to get just, this is why we're here today, right? Is part of starting to build those partnerships. What does that mean for local communities? That can mean a lot of different things. One example we can hold out right now is something as a community that is working forward towards something. Miles City, just down the road from us here in Glendive, they have their old depot has been abandoned for some decades, I believe. They recently they worked with BNSF, got BNSF to basically donate that depot to the city of Miles City. And then they were able to, their state senator actually worked very hard and got $2 million appropriated in the last legislative session for restoration purposes of that depot. So they can actually start working and get a significant project going there in Miles City to start redeveloping that depot, getting it in place for service. Now, that's not going to be everybody's story, obviously, but there are things like that, forward-thinking things, even if it's in just the planning area, where your community is starting to work on a local transportation plan, local transit plan. It's time for you to start thinking about incorporating passenger rail service into that planning and potential depot locations if you don't have one, or depot redevelopment if you have one, in the case of like Miles City or Glendive or one of these other communities where the depot is there, it just has not been used for passenger rail service in nearly 45 years.
Jason, that's a great example. I
things.
think that's a perfect stopping point to let people ask questions about what it means to their communities. If you have questions about the North Coast Hiawatha line, I know we invited municipalities and organizations that serve areas along that line. So I didn't see any questions in the chat, but please raise your hand if you have any questions for this group on just what this means and where we're at with reestablishing that passenger line. All right, David Steele. Oh, you're on mute, sir, so you can unmute yourself now. You're still on mute. Can you unmute yourself manually? Because I think we unmuted you on our side. Just a second. I can't unmute him.
No one can because they send you to mics.
All right, David, could you go ahead and type it in your question in the chat area? I'm so sorry for technical difficulties. So we had someone comment that the depot in Miles City is being transferred to Custer County. And so it's not for transportation, but it's okay. So thank you for that comment, Jeff. Are there other questions? If you can pop them in the chat box. All right, Isaac Johnson, can you put your question in the chat box? We're having technical difficulties.
Can you?
You can hear me.
I'll just say it. So I'm Isaac Johnson with the City of Bismarck, and just a planner over here. And one question I have, you touched a little on it in terms of some of the slides talking about the technology that would be used to potentially bring back this rail service. But my question is, what sort of collaboration has been done at this point with BNSF or any other relevant owners of the track to ensure, smooth sailing processes as these conversations keep happening? Because if there would be infrastructure upgrades and all that involved, surely they would be a part of it. So I was just wondering if you could share a little more about that part.
Do you want to answer that?
Should I answer that, Allison? Is that what you said?
That'd be great, Dan.
Oh, Burlington Northern Santa Fe Railway, BNSF Railway, is an ex officio member of the board of the Big Sky Passenger Rail Authority, and they have been cooperating with the authority from nearly the beginning. We are working with them already on a project on the Empire Builder line in northeastern Montana, where we've secured a 15 with Amtrak in the lead and the authority as a co-applicant. We've secured $15 million to remove a bottleneck, one of the bottlenecks that delays the Empire Builder from time to time up in the Malta, Montana area. And yes, they will be partners in this effort and will be partners in upgrading the rail line is the short answer. If you need further details, Isaac, we can provide those.
Thank you, Dan. All right, David Steele, you should be able to unmute yourself now. Sorry for that. If you
Nope.
want to pop on.
It seems to be working now. Thank you very much. I noticed that Jamestown wasn't part of the initial route stops. I was just wondering if in the future we have some developments possibility of happening of a future kind of like a park-like structure called Bison World, because we are known as a Buffalo City and there are some future developments that are in the plan. So if we're not on the initial stop, what are the possibilities of in the future that there would be stops in Jamestown as well?
That map only listed locations that were there to orient people. That was not a station selection map. I think you were I think Jamestown was a historic stop on the rail line, and you're don't conclude that you aren't being slated as a potential stop from the beginning. But certainly, and then all of the questions of the station stops and the nature of the stops will be addressed during what is called the Service Development Planning period of the Corridor ID program, for which we've been selected. We're scoping it out now, and we will move quickly, we hope by the end of the year, into the service development planning process. So stay tuned. I think you were on the line before, and don't read too much into these preliminary maps, okay?
Thank you.
Yes, and I'm Terry Thiel from Dickinson. So I've been kind of tasked to do the North Dakota rail service areas. And I know that Jamestown doesn't have the depot any longer, but you have the rail service yard. So so one of the things is I will be working with other North Dakota people to try to absolutely find out what the interest of the communities are. So as Dan has mentioned, we've only gotten so far in part of the preliminaries, so.
Great, thanks, Barb. I have a question here from John Thorson. It says new or renovated depots require advanced work and funding. How do we go forward with these projects with reasonable certainty that the trains will come? So just kind of a timing question there. Dan Bucks, do you want to take that?
Well, you know, this isn't really too much of a chicken or egg proposition anymore. This route has been selected for planning and design. And when that work is done, and that's 3 rounds of funding, when that work is done, then Congress needs to make a final decision to implement the trains. In the meantime, we can do all of the planning and the design work for the route. And the more we do, the more we guarantee that this will be implemented. Jason, is there a better answer than that? I'm trying to sum this up as best I can.
Yeah, you pretty much nailed it, Dan. I mean, again, because of the fact that this route has already been funded for development, as Dan already talked about earlier, we're the only long distance route in the Corridor ID program. We are also on the preferred route list that the FRA has unveiled through their long distance study. We're the only route that occupies both of those spaces in terms of a new long distance route. So yes, it's the chances of the route happening anyway are very, very high, but the more planning that we're able to put into this development, the more we increase the chances that when we get to the finish line and the route has been well planned, the depot locations have been planned, all the planning has been done, carried out, that becomes when you have a project at that level of completion and have made all these just positive cases for why it should exist, it makes it very hard for your members of Congress to say, oh, well, we don't think that's a wise or sound investment of our federal dollars. Because you've done the legwork, you've made the investments already to get the service there at its position where it can get going. So yeah, it feeds upon itself, as Dan said, and it makes it even more likely to go forward. So
Question here real fast, Jason, in the last minute we've got here. It says, will a full dual rail have to be constructed throughout the entire route? And how will this affect the current coal, oil, grain, and other product rail car movement? Jason, do you want to take that one?
I'll take that one very fast. No, there will not need to be dual track built the entire route. Now, there will be significant infrastructure upgrades that do need to be made. There will be new sidings, new crossings, longer sidings in places, all kind of different kinds of track improvements, like the track improvement project that Dan mentioned earlier. That's again an 18 million, well, actually, I think it's almost $20 million total project up around Malta to undo a bottleneck of track there around Malta so that freight and rail moves more efficiently, both the freight and passenger moves more efficiently, which also in part answers that part of the question, is that no dual track is not necessary. There are, however, going to need to be significant infrastructure upgrades to the track. Those infrastructure upgrades will not only make it possible for reliable passenger rail service to be reestablished on the route, it will also benefit the freight service tremendously, making the freight trains themselves also more efficient, more effective at getting local goods to market. I mean, I know it's important for us here in Dawson County, for our farmers, for our ranchers, to be able to get their grain, their cattle onto those cars and get them out of here and get them to where they need to go. And they will be able to do so better once we make these investments in our rail network, as opposed to if they're not made.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jason. All right, our question and answer period on this segment's over, but we have another one at the end of the hour. So I will turn it over now to Dan Buck to continue our program.
Okay. Thank you very much. And thank you all for your fine questions, and hopefully we'll get to more later. This segment of the program will be devoted to looking at our municipal partner program, which has been operating inside the state of Montana, and now we are welcoming cities, towns, and plus counties that are outside Montana into the program, and we're welcoming them in particular from your state of North Dakota and from the northern part of Idaho at this particular point. That is the broad middle between Fargo and Sandpoint of a rail line that is not shared with the Empire Builder. And so we're extending the program to communities from Fargo to Sandpoint and Coeur d'Alene, actually, at this particular point, and welcoming them into this program. Thus far, this program has operated as one whereby the cities and towns that are interested can provide financial support for our advocacy effort. But the line has now moved into planning and design, and so we're changing the program to broaden its focus. Now, we've had 17 Montana cities and towns join this program in the past, from our 3 largest communities along the route, Billings, Bozeman, and Missoula, down to some of the smallest towns off the route. Lima, Bear Creek, and Bridger, and Lavina, Montana are examples of large and small communities joining together to help boost this line. But we're moving beyond boosting this line, although we will continue advocacy, because part of what we hope to achieve is to advocate for twice daily service on this route in each direction, so that there's daylight service to everyone, so that dual route service is possible in some locations where we can serve 2 different sets of communities instead of just one along the route, and other benefits as well from the standpoint of twice daily service. And to do it in an advanced, modern technological way. I don't want to go into too much detail right now. That advocacy work will continue, but more importantly, we are adding components to this program where we're going to provide information and support to the communities across this route from Fargo to Sandpoint to support planning work on your behalf by you and working together. We're going to try to create a community of cooperation along this route, with the communities planning the facilities that they're going to need to maximize the benefits for their citizenry. And so we're going to talk now about some of this additional information and support we will provide to this program. And I'd like to introduce Becky Rosenleaf, who is with KLJ Engineering. She is a professional in, among other things, grant funding and development and implementation. And Becky is going to talk about the regular federal grant information that we will provide through this route.
Thanks,
Through this
Dan.
program.
I appreciate it. Hi, everyone. As Dan said, I'm Becky Rosenleaf. I'm with KLJ Engineering, and I write grants and loans for very large infrastructure projects, including rail. One of the things that I've been working on with Big Sky Passenger Rail and hope to work on with their partners at this point is ensuring that you have the kind of information that you need to provide financial support. That includes things like the summary that we have up on the screen right now, which is for the recently released Consolidated Rail Infrastructure and Safety Improvements, CRISI grant. Those come out annually. This one's due in May. And what we do is take those very large notices of funding, this one's about 200 and some odd pages long, and try and break it down for you in 1 or 2 pages so that you don't have to go through that whole notice of funding to understand what it is that you want or need or might be able to access. We do these for all funding resources that apply to infrastructure, so not just for rail. We're following in the neighborhood of 40 or 45 different funding agencies to get this information, and are also looking at projects that support this. So things for structures, things for pedestrian facilities, public transit, water and sewer infrastructure if you're building a new depot, those kind of things. So to that point, one of the things that we're talking about with Big Sky Passenger Rail is how we might be able to develop these and disperse them to municipal partners so that you have at your fingertips materials that will help you to fund some of the infrastructure that Dan has been discussing.
Well, two notes I will make. We will be holding quarterly virtual meetings with all of the municipal partners, with all of you who choose to become municipal partners, to go over this at least quarterly and sometimes more frequently, if justified, to meet deadlines, et cetera, for applying for grants or taking advantage of other opportunities. We will be doing these at least quarterly, and in some cases more frequently than that, so that you have this information on a timely basis and you can ask questions about the details, etc. I should have noted the fact that Becky was a part of the team that wrote the grant that was successful in making this route the only long distance route that was selected for development, planning and development by the Federal Railroad Administration. It's a major, major success story, and Becky was a part of that. So that's one part of this, of the information to be provided. Secondly, we are also going to be providing support for community planning and development and cooperation among the communities. And to explain that is our chair, Dan Olson, who is from Butte, Montana. He's the director on the authority for Butte Silver Bow, and he's the chair of our Planning and Resource Development Committee. Take it away, Dan.
Okay, thank you, the other Dan. Welcome to everybody. Glad to see some folks that I've dealt with. Hi, Terry Thiel from North Dakota. Anyway, so the Big Sky Planning or Big Sky Rail Authority's Planning and Resource Development Committee is going to work on getting these webinars set up to provide all these tools that that will benefit you in your planning stages. The tools and webinars are going to focus on your local needs. and we want to hear from you. All our communities are unique. They have they're large and small, but they each have their own economic drivers and what their community needs are. But also they share commonality with other communities who have similar situations. If you're both ag communities or tourist communities, those you can share with others. This planning is going to be pretty complex because it's been 44 and a half years since Amtrak passenger rail came through most of our communities here in North Dakota, in the southern route of North Dakota and Montana. So we need to step up and make some changes. We also need to plan that this is going to happen within 8 years. So we got to plan a little bit into the future. It's what's here today, but we also need to plan what's happening in your community 8 years from now. We're going to build collaboration among the local communities and get them in discussions together. For instance, tourist-based or ag-based folks could get together and discuss their specific planning needs. Some of the areas we're going to consider during the planning is train station and passenger service facilities. They're going to be the preferred location driven by your community needs for current and future transportation needs. Is it going to be the current depot? Possibly. Could it be a new depot? Possibly. Could it be what's called a flag stop station in some of the smaller sites? Possibly. A critical partner in this is also going to be working with Amtrak, who is the passenger rail operator in technical terms of this route. Local transportation planning is another big item. That's integration among local transportation systems, your bus system, if you have one, your small buses that go to adjacent communities, but based in what you need in your community to feed the passenger rail and for the passenger rail to feed your communities. There also is a possibility of transit adjacent services and development. That could be shops, restaurants, visitor accommodations and services, amenities like parks and greenways in the area, direct transport links to critical services and amenities such as healthcare for getting from the passenger rail station to the hospital, community housing and transportation corridors, and other economic or community development opportunities related to the next passenger rail. We're going to create a network of key contacts and planning sources. Those could be public, like the federal agencies, Federal Rail Administration, Department of Transportation, state agencies like Montana Department of Transportation. You planning people know what those folks are. Public sector, it could be the passenger rail operator, Amtrak in other case, and others. The host railroads like BNSF that was mentioned earlier, and rail and transit focused businesses and organizations. Will provide basic project planning tools, checklists, and guidelines for what we think your planning folks need. And hopefully, if your planning people say, oh, we need to have this, we could probably share that with the other planning organizations throughout the area. So we're trying to be collaborative in whatever. We're going to help our community partners, both individually and collaboratively. Our goal is to help our communities to prepare for their needs when passenger rail shows up at your door in 8 years or less. So I'm going to say, let's make restored passenger rail service successful and beneficial for our community partners. With that, I'll turn it back over to Dan Buck. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dan. That's a very good explanation of what we hope to help the communities out with. I appreciate it very much. I want to wrap up what the Municipal Partner Program is all about and invite you to participate in it. The cities and towns and the counties outside Montana, as well as the Montana cities and towns that are on the line here. Of course, the purpose and the key features of the program are to foster effective cooperation between communities along the former North Coast Hiawatha route to make it the best possible transportation project for serving the needs of our citizens. It will support the program will support the development of train stations and transit-oriented development and transit services that provide the maximum economic benefit from the economic and social benefits from the line. And the program will continue advocacy of the line, improving what it does for the public beyond simply what long distance service does now. We have high aspirations that this will operate as a model 21st century long distance line. So advocacy and support for communities and cooperation among the communities in the development of these services related to the route. We're going to start providing, excuse me, stay back on that, Maggie, because you can say it. We're going to provide these services, start these webinars after May 1 sometime on through next year and provide this support. It's an annual program that we ask you to subscribe to. The enrollment period for this program for the coming year is from May 1 to October 31. All that is needed is a letter of commitment on your part to join and to become a partner and contribute to the authority. And we'll get to the contributions in a minute. But just writing a letter to us, letting us know that you want to join the program in that period, during that period of time, and then you're signed up. It's flexible so that you can arrange for payment from one fiscal year to another between it spans 2 fiscal years in most states and localities. The partner contributions are tailored to community size and location, and let's go to that right now. Here are the contributions that we request that are tailored again to the size of the community and whether the community is on the route or off the route. It ranges from $100 on the route for communities less than 500, $75 if they're off the route, and it goes up to the larger communities of 50 to 100,000 of $6,000 per year on the route, or $3,000 if they are off the route. And each community can find their place along this. And if you need help, you can just get in touch with us and we will help you figure out what it is. This has not changed in the 3 years that we've operated the program. We're not escalating the cost. We are improving the services that are available for these costs. Communities have joined merely to help with advocacy, but now we're supplementing it with sources to help you in your own communities and to work together with other communities. That is the description of this program. We hope that you each will consider joining this program. The more that do, the more this route is likely to be developed effectively and sooner rather than later. So we're glad to answer any questions now, and I'm going to turn it back to Allison to run the question period again.
Pertaining to either the North Coast Hiawatha line or the municipal program. I know that the Department of Transportation has numerous programs out there that are focused on transit-oriented development. So that can look like a lot of different things and address a lot of different issues. So we're happy to help you through that. Those programs if you become a municipal partner. So we do have a question here. Will this information be sent out? So what we are going to do is we can email you participants the information from this presentation today so that you'll have that available. And we'll also make it available on our website as well shortly. So I know there were a lot of requests for that. Any other questions about either the municipal program or the North Coast Hiawatha line? All right, here we go. Is the authority open to MPOs, so Metropolitan Planning Organizations, if I think I got that right, joining the partner program on behalf of the municipal jurisdictions represented? Dan, do you want to answer that?
Yes, the answer is a simple yes. We probably should have covered that detail. We do need to make the population size adjustment, and that's MPOs could join on behalf of the municipal jurisdictions.
Other questions? Are there any hands, Maggie? Nope. All right. Well, if there aren't any other questions, oh, I see one. All right, Isaac, go ahead.
Yeah, this is just a clarifying question. On the previous slide, it had the prices listed and it said for, you know, cities and towns plus non-Montana counties. So what would it look like if a city within a county and that same county wanted to join the program? Is that something you would advise against, or is that something you would advise for? If so, how would that look and play into the prices listed there?
We'd be glad to discuss that with you and make it and work out the arrangements that made the most sense from the standpoint of who was going to take responsibility for have the lead responsibility, et cetera. We'd be glad to work with you on that. We haven't really thought that through because that situation has not really arisen. We have communities, cities that are in member counties of our of the authority in Montana, where the county is a member and has a larger financial obligation than anybody in the municipal partner program does, and then their cities have also joined, so they both have contributed and to it within Montana. And I think we would probably continue that outside the state, but we would have to discuss that and give you a more definitive answer in the future. But that we have situations, for example, Missoula County is a member of the authority, assumes a financial obligation that is far above what is on the list there, and the city of Missoula has also joined for $6,000 a year beyond the county's contribution, which is over $20,000 a year to the authority. So.
Question from Paul. I think I'm quite unmuted. Is he unmuted on our end?
Just one minute, something.
Oh, you're unmuted on our end, so you just have to unmute yourself on your end, Paul. All right. Well, as we wait for Paul, Elena asked regarding the membership fees. So the chart that you showed, Dan, was just showing the amount to join the municipal partner program, correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay, Paul, can you unmute yourself now? You are up. We've unmuted you, so you just have to unmute yourself. All right, Paul, I think we're having a little trouble. If you want to put your question in the chat, I can certainly read it for you. All right, I think that's, let's see. And yes, Kelly, I think I answered, but we are going to email this out. So participants today will get a summary email from our presentation, and then we will get on the website as well. And we'll also have a recording of this presentation. Any other questions that anyone has? Doesn't look like it. So now I think we want to express our gratitude to you for participating in this kickoff to the municipal partner program, and also for your engagement with us at Big Sky Passenger Rail Authority. We're really excited to be moving forward with a $500,000 grant from the Federal Railroad Administration on starting to look at what it takes to reestablish that passenger rail on the North Coast Hiawatha line. So likely in that process, you'll be hearing from us as we work to build partnerships throughout the route. Outside of that, Dan Bucks, did you have any other closing comments you wanted to provide before we sign off today?
No, just thank you to all for your time and your attention to this. We'll get the materials out to you, and along with how you can get back in touch with us. And thank you very much. And we hope that each and every one of you will consider joining this program, because it will help accelerate this work. This route will get done at some point. And the more we are working together, the sooner and faster and better it will be for all of our citizens. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and have a great rest of your Friday.
Thanks, everyone. We'll see you down the tracks. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.